Hey, what's up? This is Eric from Work Squatch, and you're experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
What is going on, everyone?
How are ya?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Let's explain. Let me quick introduction. Obviously, this is Poppitt's Corner presents the MX Machine Hour.
The MX Machine Hour.
I
we
like
have,
it.
we just we figured that out right now, and I'm happy to be back to Poppitt's Corner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming
And
back. Cheers, my man.
I had a lot of fun last time. We weren't done with storytelling, and I got some stories to tell. So I'm here to tell some stories.
Let's do it, my man. Yeah, what brings you on here? I'm thoroughly excited that you had messaged me to do this.
I to get started, we're here to talk about history. We're here to talk about rock and roll. We're here to talk about MX Machine and a lot of stories that came about and around it. So, here we go. I appreciate you calling me back. And when I saw you last time, it was, I drove away going, wow, man, this is amazing. Thank you, Sherman Jones. Thank you. And it was really cool. So here I am back. I'm humble and I have some really funny stories to tell. And that's why I'm here to sort of explain this whole story of MX Machine from the beginning and through the years. And let's have some fun. So
I'm excited, man.
We'll to start, it's it all started before MX Machine, obviously, this story, and that's why I'm here to sort of explain it. There are many people that were involved in this, and so for me, it all started in junior high, and this whole story with MX Machine is an amazing story, and for me it started in junior high, and that's why I'm here. When I was a kid, I was thrust into El Sereno Junior High, and that was in L.A., and that was in the year 1979, and it was a powerful movement that year, and it was a very historical year for rock and roll, and I guess you could say it's being in the right place at the right time. Is there a fan?
I'll put on a fan. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
But I'll continue on as my wonderful host gets a fan. I was in the right place at the right time, and I say that because it was 1979 and 1980. That's when I walked into El Sereno Junior High. It was by a fluke, and my world changed that day. So my mother passed away in a car accident when I was 12, and that was in that year. And that's why I was thrust into that town to live with my dad full time. The day I walked into El Sereno Junior High was a day that changed my life. I was in the 7th grade, believe it or not. And that's why I'm here to tell this story, because it all started in the 7th grade. And when you look at a kid today in the 7th grade, you see a very young child with the future ahead of them, with all the world. They're kids. When I got thrown into El Sereno Junior High, when my dad walked me in that day, when it changed my world was because of that school at that year. I walked into a rock and roll high school that changed my life forever. I went from suburban North LA County, living with my mother, and in an instant, I was thrown back into El Sereno to live with my dad, and he took me and enrolled me. Probably got to edit that bullshit. Anyways, when I walked into that school that one day, it did change my life, because I never saw kids like that. I mean, I walked into just an animal house of kids who were just rock and rollers. The disco era was huge. Everybody was dressing down, and this was junior high. This was not high school. These were kids. And I walked into a school that was just like, I was, in a week, I was blown away by what is this all about? This is insanity. This is El Sereno Junior High, 1979, coming into 1980, and it was the very quintessential Cheech and Chong school that you get. That's what I could think of right now as Cheech and Chong, walking into just rock and roll high school that was infused with just absolute party mentality across the board. And it was culture shock. And it wasn't just culture shock because it was a predominantly Hispanic, Mexican American school. I was in culture shock because I walked into a rock and roll school. I walked into a school that every kid knew every band, every genre, from Led Zeppelin to Black Sabbath to, they were fans. It was rock fans like I'd never seen before growing up in northern LA County suburbia. Canyon Country, Valencia, that's where I was, good times, but this was inner city reality, and it was mind blowing. I was transformed instantly by the culture shock, and with what was going on around me, it was easy to fall. Some people might say victim. I say I was in the right place at the right time, and it was meeting these kids on the streets changed my life more than anything else at that time. And it was because of just how close everybody was and how everybody was just, so real in what I saw because of all the stuff they came from home, but the cool thing is that, getting into this scene was what blew me away the most. And I'm sorry for getting, off track, but again, that's where I met the people that transformed me, that changed my life forever. And
now, how many kids are we talking about here?
This was the whole school. The whole school. When I walked in, there were, it was my first encounter with drugs, with partying, with I didn't even know who Black Sabbath really was until I entered that school. I'm sitting in a class, I didn't know anybody, and some kid hits me on the shoulder and asks me, "Hey man, when's the new Ozzy record coming out?" That's what he asked me. I was in that school for a week. I didn't know who Ozzy was back then, but the funny thing is when he tapped me on that shoulder and asked me about the new Ozzy record, he was asking me about the Blizzard of Oz. That album hadn't even dropped yet. You have to think about, what I'm getting at is that
1981.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And so this was 79, and this kid is asking me, when's the new Ozzy record coming out? And I didn't know Ozzy. I didn't know what was up. I heard of Black Sabbath, but I wasn't, I was into a whole other genres of rock and roll at that time. It was El Sereno that brought me to all those amazing heavy metal albums, because all those kids were so in tune with what was going on. It was inner city, it was LA. And so when I would go to school, I was a surfer. I'm wearing, this is the shit I wore when I started going there. And everybody thought I was this outsider surfer, this kid from out of town, because they were all wearing concert shirts. All those kids there were, they were discos. They were wearing rock and roll concerts. They were, Led Zeppelin, Stoner Heads. It was incredible. I mean, it was hippie central. And again, this is junior high. These are 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And to me, they were as grown up as any grown up could ever be, because these kids were all rock and rollers, the ones that I was like in tune with. But they were into the Journey, the Cars, Rolling Stones, all those bands. And every time there was a concert in LA, they would come the next day wearing that concert shirt. And that was growing up in 79, and that was being there in 80. And that was seeing that transformation of rock and roll for my my own eyes. I saw it. Right. I saw that transformation because 1980 was the epic year of rock and roll releases. Yeah. And so
AC/DC, Ozzy, Black Sabbath,
Iron Maiden, Michael Schenker Group. There are so many. Riot. There were so many amazing 1980 releases, which shook the world. I mean, it shook rock and roll. And we were there as little kids in junior high when all those albums dropped. When Back in Black dropped, it was just phenomenal. And I remember the kids. I remember the tours. I remember everybody going to those shows. And if you weren't going to those shows that night on a Wednesday or on a Friday or on you were a nerd. You had to come back to school the next day with a shirt. Yeah, anybody who's everybody. You had to have that shirt. I remember when the Cars played, and the next day everybody had that shirt with the car, with the tire tracks that came across the shirt. And that was El Sereno Junior High. But it goes deeper than that because not only was it a rock and roll and a music-oriented school, because you had the discos. They were heavy into disco, and they dressed it. The gals, they dressed like, these were young gals just dressing as beautiful as they can be in 8th and 9th grade. But they had their scene too. And that was where the disco sucks era came from, and so because everybody hated it because rock and roll was rock and roll. And so that was El Sereno Junior High at the time. It was fueled by drugs, fueled by music, fueled by just truancy and shit talking and comedy. And when I started going to those classes, these kids were so hilarious and so full of sarcasm to the teachers. I found my place so fast. It was incredible. And that's why I give so much props to El Sereno Junior High for bringing me into that scene, because I was in the right place at the right time when I met these kids who forged my path to make me who I am and to bring me to where I am today. It was because of that school, and it was because of those kids that I met who turned out to be amazing people, and I'm very proud. I could the stories are amazing, and I don't even know where to start about what we used to do and what we got away with. Well, it was insanity. That
would be interesting to see what actually you guys got away with. But how was the high school years for you?
But see, junior high was still, it's what we did in junior high first that got us. High school was I remember in my bed at night. It was a Wednesday night. It was a weeknight, and I remember one night some people knocking on my window. Somebody's throwing rocks, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I go to my window, and it's these two gals. It's Michelle and Monique. I'm not going to mention their last names. They were just like, oh my God, it's a good thing that this was your room. We don't know whose room this, they just came to find me.
Right.
And they're like, we got a van out there. Come on. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm just like, give me 5 minutes. And so I put my clothes on and I got out and I went out there, and there's this gigantic hippie van sitting down the street from my dad's house up on the hill. And I'm just like, oh my God. And like we get in, and it's my buddy Teddy, it's Michelle, it's Monique, it's this guy David. And he took his uncle's van, and we went joyriding all night. School night. That was 9th grade. and so stuff like that was now happening constantly, and that was before I met the guys who became MX Machine. We were having fun with. I was meeting all the stoner kids in school. I was meeting all the rock and rollers, and it was El Sereno Junior High that connected me with so many different new bands that it was amazing. I mean, Neil Young. I would have never have known Neil Young, Live Rush, and Rust Never Sleeps, and all of those amazing albums that because of my direction at junior high at El Sereno and how they brought all this different rock and roll to me, and then getting into high school. But we used to do so much crazy stuff back then that people would be shocked to know that our nights in junior high were every night we were rocking. Every night we had something to do. And when I met Danny and Ronnie, and getting back to the first episode we did, they were the ones who changed my life. And they were the ones who led me to the rock and roll and where I am today. And so with that, that's where the fun began. And that's, that was the end of 8th grade, coming into 9th grade is when I met these guys that would basically change my life. And that's when I finally started hearing about all these kids in El Sereno that I eventually met, who eventually became the band Armored Saint, who eventually became, we became MX Machine. There was a whole grand circle of people there who were a part of that scene before Armored Saint, before MX Machine. There was this mob of guys.
Yeah, you had your own clique.
There was a clique. And when I first discovered that's in junior high, when my buddy Ronnie, and I knew this kid Billy, and we used to talk about this, and he used to tell me, yeah, you got to meet my friends, you got to meet this guy, you got to meet, he's a drummer, you got to meet my drummer. And instantly he started talking about, and this is in school, he started talking about his friends outside of school. He started talking about John Bush and my friend Danny and Henry, and you got to meet my friend Channing, and you got to meet all these people, Gonzo and Phil, but Gonzalo, that was Gonzo back then, that was his name, and so it was just all I wanted was to meet these kids. I was like, who are these guys? I want to meet them. These rock and rollers. He just kept buttering me up to, these guys, they're musicians. They're in rock and roll. They're, and he even said, we're going to make it. He was like, you want to come with me? Come with me. We're going to, and I wanted to meet them.
Now, question for you. Is this before you even started? You were playing bass already at that time. No, you weren't. This is way before.
No,
okay.
Yeah. When Ronnie and Danny had a band. And that's all. He was like, we got a band, we're going to make it, Van Halen. And Ronnie used to just, oh my God, he used to fill me with such amazing dreams. And he had the most incredible confidence. So when we're walking from one class to another, that's when he said, you want to be in the band, and I started out being a singer, and that didn't work because I sucked, but he introduced me to these guys and instantly made me a musician. And again, that was overnight. I wasn't a musician, but I saw the dream that was in them. And I wanted that dream. I wanted to meet all these guys because here we are, and I want to go there. You're filling me with all these dreams. I want to meet Danny. I want to meet his brother Henry. I want to meet these guys. So I finally met them. And when I met Danny Anaya, my instant reaction was, this guy is Keith Moon. He is the most incredible, insane, immature idiot. He was so hilarious. His sense of humor, he was just, and I met that before I even saw him play. I saw that, before I even saw him play drums. But when we finally started getting together to play, that's when I started picking up an instrument. I sucked at singing. Ronnie and Danny gathered, and they were like, he sucks, so they kicked me out of the band right away. I'm like, well, what about if I play bass? And they're like, okay, you could play bass. So I got an old bass, and I I painted it, and I restrung it at Pedrini's Music
I was gonna say,
in
do you
Alhambra.
remember what the brand was called?
It was a Telecaster copy. It was a Telecaster
A
bass.
knockoff.
Yeah, back then they were all called copies. It was before all the amazing guitar companies came around. But yeah, it was a Telecaster. I painted it cherry red, restrung it. It worked, and eventually I was able to get a better bass. But that's how it started, and we started playing in the garage at Ronnie's house. But I'll tell you, man, it was even before we started jamming. It was when I met those guys. It was when I met, like Ronnie said, all these older high school guys, and I finally met them, and that was Joey Vera, John Bush. There was Shanning was in the circle. There was Gonzalo and Phil, the brothers. There were a couple cats from the neighborhood were very legendary that I got to give props to. David Avila, I met him once. He was a guy who was an amazing guitar player in the neighborhood. El Sereno was a rock and roll neighborhood. It was rock and roll central, which is what I found out. And that's just where the fun began. The fun in my life began as soon as I met all those characters. That's when it just became, true rock and roll. And even being a kid, we were experiencing rock and roll rock stardom at that age because we just started taking off on our own. As soon as we got our driver's licenses, as soon as Danny got his driver's license, we were gone. When there was a place called Jay's Liquor in Alhambra. Again, going back to the mayhem, Jay's Liquor became not just the local liquor store, but it became our refrigerator because every weeknight we'd go out and we would go to Jay's Liquor before any event.
And now was that when the beer was like a fucking tab? You had to like pull the tab open.
Mickey's Big Mouth. We were big on Mickey's. We were getting malt liquor. We were doing the torpedoes. We were buying those torpedoes. Even on a weeknight with nothing to do, we'd go and buy a torpedo.
Malt liquor.
We go to LVT, buy a dime bag, and we just go to the top of the hill and drink and howl at the moon, and listen to music, listen to Rush and Judas Priest and and all that music. And it was amazing. We were free. We were kids listening to music. Our parents were, it's not like it is today, and there was this,
saying. For me it is.
Well, perhaps, we had there was this street in El Sereno called LVT. And every night you can go to LVT. And it started on the bottom of a hill. It drove up and over to the other side. And when you got to the top, you park, and every kid on the top of the street would come out and surround your car, and you can get whatever you want. Weed, any kind of weed, LSD, PCP if you wanted it. It was LVT, Linda Vista Terrace. Fucking amazing. It was just an emporium for any night of the week.
Now, do you think it's still there?
Oh, hell no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hell no. Yeah, that disappeared. Oh no, that was that'll never come back.
That was an era.
That was an era. So we were going to LVT always. You go to LVT, you go to Jay's Liquor, you take off in the night. But when I met these guys, and when I met this circle, that's when again the partying began, because that's when they turned me on to the real rock and roll. John Bush, without John Bush's garage and growing up with him and sitting in his garage and listening to the records that he used to spin for us.
Give me an example of real quick of like some records he would spin for you guys.
He turned me on to all of it. I mean, as kids, we would go there and just, he would spin records like a DJ. But that's where I got to learn about the Rainbow and the Ronnie Dio. And John Bush was the in his garage, turned me and whoever was there on to the very first Iron Maiden. The very first Iron Maiden I ever heard was in his garage. The very next day, I went to the record store, I believe it was Music Plus, and I found the album, the very first Iron Maiden album, and I bought it. And it changed my life. But his record collection growing up, listening to all this stuff was amazing because, the Tigers of Pantang, Riot, the new wave of British heavy metal is basically what he turned us on to, because I was into American rock and roll. I was into Ted Nugent. I was into the Who. Okay, they're not American, but you know what I mean? He's the one who turned me on to the new wave of British heavy metal. Motorhead, all that. He had this black Comet, this car. We would drive around town all day long listening to cassettes of Judas Priest with Les Binks and just this old school metal I never heard of before in my life. And it became a part of me instantly. It was Danny, it was Ronnie. You got to listen to this Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East. It's just, and my God, the first time I ever heard it, it was just, again, I'm a kid, just, I'm a rock and roller, but I didn't know this kind of rock and roll, and these kids were party animals, and I want to go where these guys are going, and pretty soon they're like, we're going out. There's a concert. Let's go. And we started going to concerts, and that's when I started to learn about Odd Fellows Temple in Pasadena and Pookie's. The first concert I really went to, like a local gig, was Odd Fellows in Pasadena, I want to say. And it was Smile, a band called Smile. It was Snow with Carlos Cavazo.
Smile turned into, damn it, that's going to bug me now.
I think they faded away, or
but
with all respect.
They turned into...
Tommy Gervin went on to... Tommy Gervin, the guitar player, has been with Eddie Money all these years after Smile. But they were amazing. And so... and again, that was before, before all the days. That's when I was starting to come up.
That was Brian May's project. That's where I heard it.
Yeah,
before.
no. This is Smile was a band from Pasadena, Temple City, that area. So, they were amazing. Jim Volpe on drums. We used to, my first rock and roll experiences were those Pasadena shows. There was a massive Pasadena scene. So jumping around, because that's all we did, we became party animals every night. Every night we found something to do. Again, once we got our driver's licenses, we were gone. And we were just looking for fun, looking for, they were good times.
Tell me, well, this is going to be later on, so I won't.
Right.
Well, let's get back on track, because I want to ask there's some later on questions that I'm trying to.
Right. Yeah, it's confusing.
Down. Yeah.
So
let's get to like the early 80s, right? This is
the early 80s is, that was a part of the big scene for me, and for what was going on is I got in touch with these kids. I started hanging out with all these guys. It became, weekly, every day. We became a massive circle, and that's when I started seeing these amazing bands. You want to talk the early 80s. When Iron Maiden came out, they started playing out. When KNAC started, that's the early 80s.
Okay, that was 85, so that was mid-80s.
Okay, well, right, yeah.
Let's go before that.
Before that, absolutely. 1981, Iron Maiden, the Killers tour.
Okay.
Again, when Iron Maiden album dropped, the second one, Killers, we were already massive Iron Maiden fans. Our circle, it was just phenomenal. And so back in the day, we had the LA Times calendar section. And
now, what was that?
Every Sunday was the calendar section. There was no internet. There was no texting. And there wasn't even pagers back then. But you would go to the LA Times every Sunday. You'd open up the calendar section. And that is where the concerts were laid out for the upcoming months. And the big shows would always be a full page. And looking forward to the Sunday calendar section for a rock and roll fan was weekly. It's like the calendar. Awesome. Who's coming out? You go to the back. And I remember, because whenever those full page ads would come out, we would be on the phone to each other. Oh my God.
Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush is coming. We got to go see him. Or fucking,
anything that you like. That when those pages appeared.
Priest's coming. We got to go see him.
One of the first ones was a full page ad for UFO with special guest Iron Maiden.
Wow.
And when that was Long Beach Arena, and I want to say April 1981, but it was 1981, and it was we blew up. It was just, we couldn't believe, because we were already such Iron Maiden fans that we never expected them to come to America. We were just, I had already owned the album, and we'd already owned Killers, so Killers came out, and it was just like, holy shit. But then all of a sudden the full page ad comes out, and there's Iron Maiden debut show at the Long Beach Arena with a UFO. So fucking A, we got tickets. And that's getting back to the early 80s. We were able to see these shows, and we went, and when we went to see that show, getting back to junior high, and now we're, that we're there. That was one of my first acid trips. And so not only did we go see UFO and Iron Maiden live at the Long Beach Arena, but it was one of my first acid trips.
Now, who gave you the acid?
We got it at school.
Oh, okay.
That's where you get it.
8th grade, you got it at school.
Oh, yeah. And so that's, again, that's the comedy of it. That,
wow.
Here's the fucking amazingness, is that LSD was a rite of passage for us. And that goes all of us. We took it a lot, and we took it in, and we had the most incredible experiences because of it. And I have no regrets, and I think that every artist should experience it sometime in their life. End of story. I'll let that go. Anyways,
you got any?
I'm sorry.
I said you got any?
No, but
I guess I got to experience it once.
No. You know what I mean. That's old school. Getting back to this though. It's shocking because we're going to the show to see Iron Maiden, and Danny's parents are driving us in the old white Duster, so we're in the back seat, and that's when we dropped the acid. So we dropped acid on the way to see Iron Maiden at Long Beach. They dropped us off. They said, "Okay, boys, have a fun time." We went to the show. We did the show. They picked us up and took us home. Go figure. That's where this is an amazing experience for us because we're there, and we had, we're there for the first time. We're Long Beach, I believe. Yeah, my first time at Long Beach was Judas Priest. But again, getting back to those days, we were there. We went to Iron Maiden, and we were peaking off our asses. And when we went to that show, nobody knew who Iron Maiden was hardly, and it was a sold out show for UFO. And we had made it down onto the floor because we snuck down. We snuck down onto the floor for every show. Well,
see, that's a thing. So my dad told me that story. So he every time he would go to a show, whether it was Ted Nugent or I don't know, Priest or Motorhead, he would get nosebleed seats.
Yep.
Sneak down somehow to the front.
It was a game.
It was a game.
Yeah, that's what we did too. You buy nosebleeds. I mean, if you really wanted to see the show, and if you had the balls that we had, and if you had the adrenaline, that's what we did. And so, but Danny's the one who started it, and Ronnie too, but he would say, "See you later," and he would just ditch us. And then one day I was just like, okay, and that's when we learned to jump walls and jump from this area to the other, jump behind Coke machines. So here we are, we're peeking our asses off, and Iron Maiden comes out. And that was a Killers tour. This roadie comes out with an Eddie mask over his head, and the Ides of March explodes on stage, and the whole sitting audience who knew nothing about Iron Maiden, this guy just comes out on stage and starts telling everybody, "Get up!" Get up. The Ides of March are playing, and we're just, given our condition, it's just fucking amazing. And the entire crowd got up on their feet. The opening act that nobody knew about ever because of, the music coming through the PA, the Ides of March coming through the PA system. They're not playing it. It's a PA playback.
And now, is this before the Priest and Maiden tour for Point of Entry?
Oh, this, I don't know about that.
That was 81 or 82. So.
Yeah, no, the Iron Maiden tour with Killers was with UFO at Long Beach. They might have done dates elsewhere, in other cities.
It's very famous. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it could be. But the Iron Maiden debut in LA was with UFO there, and when they came out, you know, they were, you know, the everybody rose to their seat. And then that kid, that roadie left, and you see these dark images come out on stage. It was Maiden, and they opened up with Sanctuary. And again, it was phenomenal. I mean, they played, I remember they played Another Life. They played Killers, obviously. They went through such an amazing set. But when they went through Another Life, you know, that drum, they even dedicated to Clive. I remember it.
They
you know,
dedicated it to the drummer they had playing with them?
Yep. This is for Clive because it, you know, it was so amazing.
Right.
You know, he's like, this is for our drummer Clive, you know, and because it was just, it was Clive Burr, man, you know. And so, but getting back to this night, here we are. We're a wreck. I mean, we're just fucking like, this is just wow. We're back, you know. Now we're following Danny. The show's over. Iron Maiden. We're not really even, now we're on a mission to get backstage. UFO hadn't come on yet. So now it's like, we got to get backstage. We're peaking. We're just like, what's going on here?
Now, how difficult was that?
Easy as fuck.
Really?
Fucking, well, because if there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
Sure. You know, but that's the concert. I want to say, because there was a couple ones, but that was a concert where there was a Coke machine against a wall. There was the gate. To get backstage, there was a Coke machine, and then there was a little bit of room between the gate and the VOM. So we snuck behind the Coke machine and behind the gate, and just like that, we were backstage. And now, you know, we're flipping out because we're backstage. We really didn't see the UFO set that night. We're tripping out, but we finally make it backstage after the UFO set. And I remember going into a room and meeting Pete Way. And so we walk into a room and there's Pete Way. And Danny, me, Ronnie's with us, you know, Pete Zahorowitz with us, another guy. We're just blown away because now we're in a room with UFO. We're talking to Pete Way. The show's over. He's a ball of sweat. He's wearing his classic black and white striped pants. We can't communicate because we're so incapacitated. So we meet Pete Way. That happens. We get kicked out somehow. We end up leaving. We got to get back to the car for Danny's mom and dad to meet us. Yeah, so we're leaving the backstage area, and who's there? Adrian Smith is in a gold Porsche, and he's surrounded by a bunch of fans. He's signing autographs. He's got this gorgeous blonde with him. He's in this rented gold Porsche backstage, Long Beach Arena. We mob him. He signs Danny's Vans because Danny, he wore Vans. That's it. He signed his Vans. And then he fucking took off and he just sped off into the fucking night. And that was Adrian Smith. And, you know, and that was our experience at Iron Maiden in 81.
Can I ask you real quick? So Long Beach Arena is literally a hop, skip, and a jump from Fenders. Do you recall if Fenders existed back?
Yeah,
we
played
time?
Fenders with Death Angel.
Well, no, I showed you that ad or whatever. But no, I'm talking like, do you remember if back in the early '80s was Fenders like an actual thing, or did it
no,
become...
absolutely. Fenders Ballroom was a massive punk venue. And it was very popular. The big punk shows, the Long Beach punk shows used to go out of Fenders. And then the heavy metal bands started coming in there when they were strong. Right. A lot of strong metal acts came there too, and us, you know. Well, but you know, Fender's Ballroom was amazing.
But so, it existed during
it did.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know a big history about the Fender's Ballroom. We did play. We destroyed a motel room after that night too. So
well, I got to hear that when I get to the Fenders days,
right?
But
But yeah, growing up, you know, it's just like El Sereno Junior High was amazing, is what I'm getting at, and the times that we had, and all the different, all the crazy times we had were amazing, and it was weeknight, and it was, and the things that we used to do together as a mob were amazing, and you know, it's just. it was the right place at the right time. And that was when Armored Saint was even forming. You know, they hadn't even had a band. They were just mustering up. And and that was before Dave Pritchard even came into the scene. And then we met Dave Pritchard. You know, the South Pass scene sort of came into play. And that's when an even bigger mob developed. You know, because at first we were all rolling hard, just these kids of El Sereno, ditching parties, and you know, just it just the fun goes on. I remember, you know, we're sitting one night, you know, a bored weeknight. We're at Jay's, we're drinking quarts in the parking lot after scoring. We'd walk all night in El Sereno to get to where we wanted. We didn't have drivers. You know, we didn't have cars or driver's licenses until later. So we'd walk everywhere. Even when the South Pass scene came in. We're all sitting in a parking lot at El Sereno Library one night in the middle of the night, you know, on a weeknight, late to get home, shooting the breeze. And next thing you know, this fucking M80, sizzling M80 firecracker comes over the wall, right into the middle of all of us. And just no time at all. It just blew up right in front of us. But those were the good times.
So after this Long Beach show, when did you explain to me kind of the first band practice of MX? Can we go there yet, or is that way later?
Yeah, you know, I mean, the first band practice was after high school. You know, we were already going through the motions. You know, Armored Saint was already rolling hard, and we were very, very inspired by that. So you know, I put a band together, and the word MX came up in high school. It was my dream band name. We had a couple others, you know, we had a couple other bands with Ronnie, and, you know, we had a band with Pizza Horwitz, you know, a bunch of amazing experiences before. And before I get to that, I do want to say a couple things, and we could edit this shit out. Yeah, I mean,
fine.
You know,
the video,
we'll edit.
The video won't be, but I can edit the audio for sure.
And so, but here's another one, man. I mean, before MX, and these are some amazing stories, and that's why I do want to talk about them. And that's when we were rolling with, you know, coming up in this world of rock and roll, you know, we were following some really strong cats who were really, really talented, and I got a lot of respect for that because they were all our mentors, and that's the Armored Saint guys, and that's you know, Joey Vera was in a band called Greg Leon Invasion, and they were phenomenal. They were from Temple City too. There was an amazing scene out there, and we were the younger generation of that scene. And one of those scenes I want to talk about is Earl Mendenhall and the Bloodlust story that Danny and I have.
Bloodlust the band?
Bloodlust the band. Earl Mendenhall, Steve Gaines, Sandy was in it.
Wow. Okay.
This is awesome.
Yeah, I gotta hear this, dude.
You know, Danny had a back room at his house that everybody congregated at. It was the back room. That's where his drum kit was, the monster stereo, the record collection. The photos on the wall are so fucking historic. So you know, and that's a whole different story too. But one day I get a call from a guy, and his name is Earl Mendenhall, and somebody gave him my number, and he gave me a call, and we shot the breeze, and he told me about a band project that he had, and he wanted to come down and he wanted to talk to me and Danny about it, because I was a bass player and Danny was a drummer, and we were up and coming. So yeah, sure, man. You know, come on down. I called Danny. Hey, man, you know, some guy, you know, he sounds like a nice guy, you know, and his name's Earl. He wants to talk to us about a concept. And again, I wish somebody hooked us up, and I appreciate it. So he came down to Danny's back room, and when Earl showed up, you know, Danny and I were, you know, Huntington Beach, you know, boogie boarding. You know, we didn't dress rock much. You know, we were pretty much just, you know, regular dudes, and a lot of Vans and OPs and surf wear. So that's the funny thing is that Earl came to see us at the back room, and he came to give us his concept for his band. And at that time, he had a concept that was heavily inspired by the live, the Black Sabbath Live Evil album. The Ronnie Dio, yeah, he was a major Ronnie Dio Sabbath fan, and which was amazingly impressive to us, and we were just like blown away that and honored that this guy came. And I remember him sitting there with his with his hair and his boots and his denim, and it was just amazing. So he gave us this lowdown of his concept for his band called Thulsa Doom. And it was so amazing and so inspired by Black Sabbath. And I remember we both that it was just the concept was phenomenal. But it was a little bit too much for Danny and I, considering we didn't fit the image of being Black Sabbath, just that the whole image.
Oh, so the image aspect, not the musical aspect.
Well, we didn't hear the music. We didn't hear the music. We just listened to the pitch, and we respected it, and we were honored because nobody had ever come to us, as looking for a bass player and a drummer. So we're like, wow. So he gave us this great pitch. It was massive, just all the Black Sabbath you could think of. Just think about it, huge. And we were just, wow. He, hey, give it some time. And we thanked him. He went home and we talked about it. We were blown away. We had some talk. We had some laughs. We were just, just like, wow, we couldn't go with it. Plus, we were also sort of doing our own thing at the time. So time went on. That was it. That was Earl Mendenhall's pitch to us. And Earl, mad respect, man. I love you. This is amazing story. And so a couple months later, a year, I don't recall. Earl calls me. Hey man, how's it going? I got this band, we're rehearsing, you ought to come check us out, and I'm like, awesome, wow, hell yeah. I look forward to it. Fuck yeah, where? I'll come. And it was at a studio called Curly Joe's. And that was in
What
downtown
city?
LA on Main Street. It was the brewery now. Before the brewery, right when they were, vacating everything and demolishing, and LA was, abandoned, there was Curly Joe's on the 5th floor.
Okay.
And these were gigantic studio rooms layered with those cardboard egg crates
for the sound.
For the sound. Never
yeah.
mind the deathly fire hazard. Nobody thought about that back then, but
Yeah, they just wanted to make sure that it wasn't fucking loud.
the sound was
enough.
amazing.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I drive down to Curly Joe's. I go to check out Earl Mendenhall's new band. I walk into this room, and there they are set up. And again, I'd already been to a million shows, but in the local aspect, the quote, the local metal show, I guess you could say, when I walked in there and saw everybody, and when they played that first song to me, it was the band Bloodlust, and they
Who was
played.
singing? Who was singing
Steve
at the-
Gaines
okay.
was singing, and it was the most phenomenal, the most heaviest, the sound was, it was just face melting is the word I give, because I never heard anything like that in my life. And that was Bloodlust, and that was, in LA at Curly Joe's on the 5th floor. And that was my first experience. And when I walked out of that room after what Earl gave, the pitch he gave us about his other band, I was just like, wow, dude, I that changed my life. And it changed my direction as where do we need to sound heavy. I don't know what's going on here, but this is fucking amazing.
And this is what, 82, 83?
Yeah, 82, 83, I would think we were already rolling before MX. Mitch and I and Danny were already starting to jam. You know, when Mitch came into our world, he was a little kid. You know, he was a little shanker kid. You know, but
hey, by the way, one of these episodes that we're going to do, the MX Hour,
right.
I got to get Lee Kaiser on the phone or something.
I would love to. You know, he's up north. You know, it'd be great. You know,
he's got a phone like everyone else. We can. I can dial him in this mixing board. We can fucking talk to him.
Well,
so.
I would love to. The last I heard, he's not on cell phone. He does smoke signals to his ranger station. Nah, I'm sure we can. That'd be great.
I'm sure we got a flare gun somewhere.
Exactly.
So.
You know, yeah, he's. You know, we got amazing stories. You know, and so that bloodlust thing. Oh, absolutely. You know, but
I feel I'm a part of this
right.
Community
Yeah, it's welcome. You know, there's they go on and on. You know, right on, man. You know, there's a million of them. You know, and they go on, and even before MX, you know, Armored Saint was making their debut.
Well, do you agree with this? Them. So Armored Saint, Bitch, Omen, those were kind of like the starter pack for LA metal.
There was a starter pack for LA metal for sure, and the starter pack in the popular world, I would say, you know, you got to give a lot of credit to Brian Slagle and Metal Blade.
Yeah, how much of an impact did he have just in LA in general?
Brian Slagle, I don't really know the gentleman. I have great respect for him, but the funny thing about Brian is that when all those crazy shows were happening in LA, and we were going to them, we would always see this guy in the back holding up the wall at the bar with his gloves and his leather, and you know, this big guy with his, you know, short hair, and he was a metalhead, but we didn't know where, you know, it was like we knew he had an agenda, you know, but that's what I know about Brian Slagle and Metal Blade, and they you know, he was there at all those shows, you know. But as far as the first, you know, metal generation, you know, I will truly give, you know, there were great bands, you know, a Bitch, you know, they were great, you know, we used to see a lot of the bands, we saw those, you know, Wasp, and shocking, you know, seeing Wasp at the Troubadour was shocking as fuck, you know, not our cup of tea. But you know, they got a lot of fans and people love them, and they did good. So good for them, you know. But I'm gonna say that Armored Saint, I'm gonna give them credit for changing the LA club scene forever, because it was Armored Saint and us, the fans, who were so full of mayhem and adrenaline at their shows. We were their true headbangers, and because of the headbangers that came to Hollywood for their shows, we wreaked havoc among the chairs and tables that were in front of the club stages at that back in that day, and it was Armored Saints' energy and drive that all the clubs in Hollywood removed their tables and chairs and opened up the floors. And I'm going to give them credit for that, because I was there and I saw it happen with my own eyes. You know, there was a famous Troubadour show where I did a stage dive, and I was chased by the security out of that club. They wanted to kill me because I dove right onto a table full of people. I destroyed every drink, every, you know, the glasses, the table went everywhere, and that was, you know, that was a Saint show, and because their show was so phenomenal, and so I'm proud to say that they were the ones who altered that. I could be wrong, you know, there could be other bands who would say, oh no, it was us, but you know what, it was Saint, and that's it. I give them that, you know, they were phenomenal live back then.
And when the record came out, did it do anything for you? That EP, that the first pretty much ever Metal Blade release? It
was great. Yeah, it was great. You know, great songs.
Game changer for you.
It was great. Well, it was a game changer for all of us and for LA, but also for us, because that was our circle. You know, that was we were very proud. You know, Philip, he had the Sando van. He had this van. It was the Sando van. He used to pick us all up, and we'd follow them everywhere. And we'd go to all the shows in the Sando van, and we would party our fucking asses off. You know, there when Armored Saint played their first show at St. Paul High School, we were there. And Joey wasn't in the band. He was doing sound, you know, and so, but that was their very first show. And we knew, you know, these guys are going places. So was it good times for us? Hell yeah, man, because, you know, fucking A. You know, the destruction along the way, you know, we were party central. You know, we threw puke parties, toga parties. We used to destroy hotel rooms together. You know, Dave Pritchard, you know, when Saint and MX Machine finally started rolling, Dave Pritchard used to throw the biggest fucking parties at his house, and Armored Saint and MX Machine would play together. You know, so
to me,
hard.
To me, I think, just for my opinion, personal preference, I think Dave was pretty much the reason why Armored Saint was so great. Because if you listen to like the Revelations record and the Delirious Nomad, I mean, it's just him playing guitar.
Yep.
Like, I really feel he was Armored Saint. At least in my opinion, because Symbol of Salvation still had songs from him,
right?
And that was the last great classic of
it's a great record
of the Armored Saint camp, right? Obviously, they've released great records after that, but I'm saying the classic lineup to me was Dave.
He
was his sound.
Dave Pritchard was, God rest his soul. Not only was he an amazing human being and real as fuck, his songwriting and his guitar playing and his passion was spot on. And he was in high school even. He was the quintessential rock star. And we all looked up to him so much because he was larger than life to all of us. Larger than life. You know, when we knew him well, again, we would roll so hard together. Dave Pritchard, one night, Ronnie, Dave, and I, we were going home. Dave was driving. He was like, you guys know how to drive backwards? You ever drive backwards? And now we're driving backwards in his little blue Datsun car, or whatever it was, at 60 miles an hour through South Pasadena, rolling through stop signs, just like driving backwards. You know, I mean, this guy was a fucking animal. And so all respect to him. As a creative genius, he wrote the riffs that were just timeless. Dude. He wrote timeless riffs. And here's a fun story for me.
Give me a Dave story, man. Come on, man. Give me a Dave Pritchard
one fun story is they used to hole up at Gonzalo and Phillips' studio garage in El Sereno when they started rehearsing. And I used to go there after school. One day I went there, and Dave was there after school. He's jamming by himself, and he's riffing. And I kid you not, I walk in to say hi. Hey, man, what's going on? Smoke a bowl. Let's smoke a bowl. Whatever. You know, I don't fucking remember, man. And so his brother Kenny had his bass there. It was a Rickenbacker. And those things are amazing basses. They're so loud. And he goes, here, pick this up and let's jam. So now I'm like, hell, I was starstruck. You know, I mean, hell yeah. So, you know, I'm just and I'm an up and coming bass player, you know, no MX Machine in sight at that time. So he's riffing and he tells me, play this, just play this. And he tells me, just play this note. Bum, 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 bum. That's all he's telling me to just play that. Just play that. So I started playing that nonstop with tapping my foot. And what does he start doing? He starts riffing Stricken by Fate. And I'm just like, you know, I'm listening to this shit. I'm listening to this guy, just these open chords, these and I'm just playing that bass riff.
Classic.
And I'm just like, I can't believe this is, but we didn't know at the time that it was going to be Stricken by Fate, but it was a riff that I'll never forget, you know, because that was before Armored Saint, you know, and then they started playing out. And those songs were fucking timeless. And they captured everybody. And it was you know, I cannot tell you how blessed I am to be in those situations. Just that one moment with Dave Pritchard alone, that's it. But we got a million stories because he was so amazing.
Right.
But just a pure, real human being.
Let me ask you real quick too. I know this has nothing to do with MX because you guys were not, unfortunately, never on one of these compilations. But the Metal Massacre series,
right?
How much of a role did that whole series play into the LA scene out here? Because
I think that had a massive impact. Because there were that was the beginning of a scene that blew up, and again, the being in the right place at the right time for Brian Slagle and Metal Blade at the same time. They did that Metal Massacre comp, and they did a couple of them, but it launched it launched the careers of quite a few, and it spread a word, and it got a message out when LA was still reeling in from the LA scene of the 70s. Metal Blade brought the LA heavy metal to the world, I guess you could say, because they did. And so I'm absolutely, they're very, they're historic. I'm not a big fan of the I don't follow the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. To me, it's just a museum and a tourist trap. But if there is a true Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there's a lot of motherfuckers who belong in it that aren't. That's why I don't. My Hall of Fame is in my heart. And so there are some motherfuckers out there who did their job in delivering.
Well, your Hall of Fame is in your record collection, just like mine.
Exactly. Thank you.
That's what my
exactly.
Hall of Fame is.
My, what's in my heart.
Well, my record.
What's in my collection?
is,
Yeah. Even though I got rid of my record collection when CDs came out, like an idiot.
Well, that's okay because I'm trying to restock yours with us new bands.
Cheers.
So I appreciate you
yeah.
having us
Dude,
in there.
Keep it up. Keep it up. So there's good times, and getting back again, we'll edit this, but the years at El Sereno Junior High are what cemented who I am today. The crazy times, the madhouse partying that we did, the ditching parties. I mean, ninth grade to me, I didn't even go. I had no time. I was too busy having fun.
Well, yeah, I know you specified
learning rock and roll and just doing what I wanted to do.
Right.
You can't do that in LA. You can't do that in school nowadays.
Well, yeah, I know you specified it on the episode 1.
Right.
So obviously it ties into the ninth grade, but give me, and real quick, I'm gonna step outside real quick while you tell the story. But
we'll take a break.
Well, do you want to do a part 3 right now? If that's okay, I can shut this off and then
we'll
just do part 3. That way we can use the restroom and get facilitated.
Yeah, go.
Okay. Part 2's over. Mr. Diego, seriously,
cheers.
Like a true icon to LA metal.
I've been around the block. I'm not an icon.
You got you and Steve Gaines. There's a lot of you guys, okay?
There's a lot of us that have been around the block.
Yes.
That's for damn sure.
I'm very grateful that all of you have been on this particular program. I really appreciate you giving me
Well, you
the
got a knack
opportunity,
for
man.
radio, kid.
I
support you.
appreciate
You're good.
I support
so,
you guys,
keep it up,
dude. I support everybody out
We're
there.
gonna have fun. I mean, I want to play. Want to play again.
Well, let's play.
All right.
We'll fucking take a break and we'll come back and we'll play some nothingness because we'll be talking. So
sounds
whatever.
good.
Cheers.
Peace.